Eros Meets Agape is a bi-weekly heart-to-heart conversation about love, sex, marriage, and relationships. Everyone wants to love and be loved, but everyone does not know how to give and receive the love they both want and need. Intimacy and passion are essential, yet mean nothing if there isn't unconditional and sacrificial love, which is the foundation for any lasting relationship. Dr. Saudia is a licensed marriage and family therapist and minister. Let's listen in as she shares how to create healthier and happier relationships.
Hey there, family. That's right. It is time for your favorite podcast episode. That's what I'm calling it by faith, the Eros Meets Agape podcast. And today we are going to talk about mommy issues. I know we've heard of daddy issues, but there is a such thing as mommy issues, and a number of women are experiencing that in their lives, and I'm here to talk about it. So you know how we do. Let's head on over into the classroom. All right there, fam. It is me, Dr. Saudia, and I'm so excited to be with you all yet again. This is episode 120, guys and gals. You all know what that means. It's only 9 more episodes. It's September. Can you believe this? I literally feel like at the most it should be maybe April, because this year has flown by. And trust me, I don't need to get any older. I don't need this year to continue to fly by as fast as it is. Oh my gosh, it's scary how fast it's going because it is September. But the good news is we are having our first Eros Meets Agape event. I told you all, since outside is now open, then outside is what we are doing. We've been cooped up, not being able to see each other face to face. So I want you all to come on out to the Black and Bling events, guys. This is going to be hype. I'm telling you, I'm so excited about planning this event. Me and my team are doing some special things I know you are going to enjoy. So if you all can hear the excitement in my voice, I'm telling you, it is only but a smidget of what you all will experience. So join us. And I know I said this on a previous episode with the wrong date, so I'm going to make certain you all have the correct date, because we had to do a date change. The venue wasn't available, and I wanted it at this certain location. So we will be having the Black and Bling annual event, okay? So it will be happening every year. But for the inaugural year, which will be this year on October the 22nd, that's a Saturday. So October the 22nd of this year, 2022, we are having the Black and Bling event. It will be in Farmington Hills at the 1111 studio. And 11 is spelled out, and then it's 11 again, and then studio. So come on out. It's on 12 Mile and Middle Belt in Farmington. I'll have more information. Then, of course, when we begin selling tickets, you'll have all of that information included with your ticket information. Now, look. Tickets will not be sold at the door. Tickets will only be pre-sold. So please make certain that you follow us on Instagram, because I'll start posting a lot of that information this month. Yes, now, because it is September. So make certain that you follow us on Instagram so you can get those details. But of course, you can get information here on the erosmeetsagape.com website for event details there. And once we have that information ready to roll out, because it's going to be any day now, you'll know where you can get your tickets, cost of tickets, and then, of course, the actual event details itself. So again, it's the Black and Bling event. Come out with your best black gear and blinged up attire that you have, because we're doing some fun stuff. Again, it's on Saturday, October the 22nd, 2022, and it will be from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. And it's the Black and Bling event, but this year's theme is BYOB. That's right. I said it, y'all. BYOB. That's right. Bring your own bestie. Okay. So get your best friend. We do so much stuff with our men, our husbands, our boyfriends. But how often do we really get a chance to hang out like we did in our 20s when we had nothing but life and time, right? We don't really get a chance to do that anymore as we get older and we're raising families and we are enjoying our careers and building and taking care of family members that are as they get older in life. So we want to make certain that we have a time to honor our best friends. The previous weekend here in the Midwest, in the U.S., is Sweetest Day weekend. So you'll have time to celebrate with Bae. But on Saturday, October the 22nd, I want you to BYOB. Bring your own bestie to the Black and Bling annual but inaugural event, which is Saturday, October the 22nd. Again, follow us on social media, on Instagram, and then check the erosmeetsagape.com website so that you can get your tickets, because they will be pre-sold and not sold at the door. We're going to have a great time. All right, guys. So with that being said, I want to add one more thing. I love to pour into you all. And I told you, when the podcast ends in its final year this year, I'm going to miss you guys. This has been 5 years. Okay. I told you all how I started this. Me and my little smart self thought, oh yeah, I'll just do it for a year. I didn't really think, don't get me wrong. I don't think a podcast is forever, but I for sure did not think I would be in year 5. But now that I'm here in year 5, guys, I have enjoyed myself with you all. I didn't even think it was possible for me to talk that much for that long about the same content in different ways, right? Talking about love and attachment. That's pretty much the majority of what I talk about here. But who would have thought that 5 years later, I'd still be here. And more importantly, you all would still be listening. And more importantly than that, you all would be growing in numbers. It just amazes me when I see the different countries of people that are listening. I'm like, Russia? People in Russia are listening to me? People in Italy? Wait a minute. Okay, Canada, Europe. I kind of call you all like the cousins and sisters because you all are close by. But when I see Africa, I'm like, Africa? Yes, I say Africa in the continent because, yes, there are some countries within the continent of Africa that do listen in here. All right. So for every listener, no matter where you are across the globe, I love you. And thank you so much for listening and choosing to spend part of your day listening to me and the things that I'm sharing here on the Eros Meets Agape podcast. So I don't want the year to end and the podcast ends and we have no more connection. So what I'm about to tell you all. That's right. Text the word no dessert. And I want you to text that to 877-7-LOVE-07. So I want you to text the following number, 877-7-LOVE-07. And if you are single, you're going to text the word all caps, no spaces, no dessert. And I'm going to come into your lovely little inbox, or should I say text message screen, just pouring my little heart out in some type of message, whether it's via video or just a quick text to just share something with you or to make you think about something or just to give you some love and support. But don't worry, those of you all that are coupled up, booed up, loved up, haven't forgot about you either. You're going to text the same number, 877-7-LOVE-07, and you're going to text the word date night. And that's spelled DATENITE. Okay. So for those of you that are single, you're going to text the word no dessert. And for those of you that are in a relationship, engaged or married, you are going to text the word date night. Each way you do that, guys, it's all caps and no spaces. Okay. And guess what? Y'all, I got some exciting news to share. I'm so excited. Guess who has developed an app? Me. I'm raising my hand because it's me. I'm so excited about this. I have been busting at the seams, keeping my little mouth shut until this day would arrive. And guess what? This day is finally here. Now, I'm going to let you all know It's in its first phase of development. So don't think, it's like in its final phase and it should look like a particular way compared to all these other things out here. But don't worry, the content is great. If you trust me and the content that I provide here in this podcast, that's right. I told you all we were stepping out in 2022. And just because the podcast is ending does not mean that you all will be hearing the last of me. So with that being said, I developed an app. Guess what the app is called, y'all? It's called Date Night. Yeah, I love it. Okay. All right. No, seriously. But for real, it's called Date Night. Now, I'm going to be honest. This app is really designed for those men or women. It just so happens that it's mostly men that experience this. Because ladies, let me tell you something. How many of you have really felt like every time me and Bae go out, it's because I'm the one that said something, or I planned it, or I looked something up and then told him about it. And I'm tired of directing everything. I'm tired of initiating stuff. I want him to take the initiative. I know a lot of women who experience that. And it's not because Bae doesn't want to. It's just because Bae either doesn't know the right way to do it that would please you and does not, as a result, want to disappoint you, ends up not really doing things at all. Or Bae is at a place in the relationship where he feels you all know each other. There's nothing more to learn. So what could you all communicate about and do more that you all don't already know? And Bae doesn't get it, that your emotional connection and the emotional intimacy in the relationship is a little bit lacking. So if it is a lack of quality time, that's an issue. If it's a lack of emotional connection, that's an issue. Or if it's just not knowing what to say and how to say it, or how to say it in the right way, guess what? The app is for you. Male or female, but it just so happens that it's probably going to be geared to 70% of males, because you all know I love me some attachment. So it is attachment related, and it really focuses on those that have avoidant, or what we identify as disorganized or fearful attachment. Mostly males, if you are in those categories, but some women experience that too. Now you may say, well, why is it just geared towards males? I'm not saying women won't be able to use it. We are in phase one, because when I tell you Date Night is going to be something that will blow your mind, this is just phase one of Date Night. I have 2 more phases that are going to drop as this phase begins to close out. And I'm telling you guys, you all are going to love it. This is just a little preliminary. It's going to change up the online dating scene, as well as going to change up our current relationship. So look at it from this vantage point. I'm not saying you can't go to a counselor or a coach. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is Date Night is really a wingman right at your fingertips. It does everything that you will need it to do in order to create the connection that you are wanting more of, or you just want in your relationship that you aren't presently getting. And it teaches the person how to do that, knowing when to do that, and how to provide that in the right scenarios for that to take place. I'm telling you all, you're going to love it. This has been a labor of love as far as getting to this place, not app-wise, but just really getting to this place where I'm able to, what I like to identify as get off the couch. Not that I'm going to quit counseling, but meaning it's only so much therapists can do in that 1 hour. But when we turn and we become coaches, there's so much more that we can do as coaches that we can't do as therapists. But then guess what? As a coach, there's only so much that we can do as a coach in the time that we have you in front of us. But what happens when we are at your fingertips and we are your wingman, saying the right thing at the right time to help you and Bae to connect and to guide you through a date night experience, okay? So I know I've been talking a lot about information about what's coming up, but I don't want you all to think that the Eros Meets Agape podcast is the last that you will hear of Dr. Sadia, because no. It's just a new way that we are transitioning, that you will see and hear more of what we're doing here so that you all can implement it more in your lives. I'm telling you all, you are going to love it. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We have a lot of exciting things coming up. In February, we will be having our annual couples event. So If you're looking at something to do for Valentine's Day weekend, I'm telling you in advance, you're going to want to be a part of the Eros Meets Agape event, where we are going to have let's just say it's going to be a sensual, but safe and respectable evening with Bay, celebrating Valentine's Day in a way you have never experienced before. Now, when I was in my graduate program, guys, I used to do a lot of stuff with other couples just because I just wanted to pour into couples and I wanted them to experience the best and most from love. Not that they weren't getting it, but I just wanted to educate them on some other things that they just weren't aware of, right? If I read all about it, you shouldn't have to. How about I just tell you what I learned, but instead of telling you, show you. So just letting you know. All of the Eros Meets Agape events, yes, they will have some type of attachment component, but you don't have to worry. You won't be in any class type function or setting. It's just all in the fun stuff that we'll be doing for the evening. And trust me, you're going to have a great time. I've done this before. I'm no newbie at this. I'm excited, guys. So for my couples, I hope you stay tuned because in February, we are going to start our annual Eros Meets Agape date night event. And of course, we will have our annual October event for all of our single ladies, or you can be in a relationship and married. All you just need to do is be a female to come to the ladies event. You can be single or in a relationship. It doesn't matter. But if you're in a relationship, then you get the best of both worlds because you need to come to the ladies event as well as the couples event. But don't worry, we will actually have a fall event. Well, I won't say fall, but we're going to have more events to come. I'm going to share that for a little bit later in the year as we get closer to giving you more information. So I just wanted to give you all those two things. Don't forget our annual Black and Bling event. This year's theme is BYOB, and I want you to BYOB. Bring your own bestie. You're going to have a wonderful time. Check out the website as well as our Instagram page for more information and to purchase tickets. Again, that is on Saturday, October the 22nd at 8 p.m. Hope to see you all there. With that being said, let's go and head into our topic for today. Because I told you all a lot, didn't I? I know I did. I told you all. There's so much stuff coming. I'm still chills about this podcast ending. It's just like, I couldn't believe it. But I have even bigger chills because of the app that's coming out and so much more to come. All right, let me stay focused. We're talking about a mother's love, right? What does that really mean? You know, we see a lot, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, we see a lot about mini-me's and mommies loving on their little babies, looking just like them and matching outfits or similar dresses, similar colors, whatever, you know, things like that, right? That's when they're small. But now let's imagine that this lovely little precious blessing that you all have is now older and your daughter is maybe late teens, early 20s. I see and hear about a lot of women that have issues with their mom. So what does that mean? When we have mommy issues, okay, let's think of it from this vantage point. We've heard of mama's boys, right? So mama's boys, of course, are guys that are just loved by their moms, okay? Their mother loves them and has spoiled them. Reason, I believe the saying is, moms love their sons, but raise their daughters. So what does that mean? If I'm loving on my son, it's sort of like being a daddy's girl, which means a dad raises his son, but loves his daughter. You know, you get that opposite sex, you know, love and emotional connection from that parent, the opposite sex parent. Whereas that same sex parent has the responsibility to raise you because their job is to want you to be a healthy, functioning adult in whatever that looks like in your family as far as what that definition would be. When I say functioning, that's the part, right? Healthy, that's also going to be an even greater part of what that really means because every family doesn't see healthy as being the same thing. But as a same-sex parent, our goal is to raise our children as being self-sufficient, emotionally and mentally healthy. We don't want to raise people that are just out here. Let's just think of the insurance commercial where the guy is mayhem and he's just causing havoc wherever he goes. I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to say certain things because that's not my job and not my area. But we're not trying to raise mayhem. We're trying to raise healthy, functioning, self-sufficient individuals who go on to have their own families and raise their own healthy, functioning, self-sufficient children to be adults that are self-sufficient and healthy independently as well as relationally. But it looks different. Why? It looks different based off of the family of origin from where you come from. Now, some people will say when it comes to mothers and daughters, they can't live under the same roof because of the queen bee concept. And just so we're clear, I am not talking about Beyonce, okay? Let me be fair, because she had the title first. Nor am I talking about Lil' Kim, all right? I'm talking about the queen bee. No disrespect to them if you love those people. Lil' Kim and Beyonce. No disrespect. I'm just saying that's not what I'm referring to. I'm going back to the old adage of they would say that two women can't live in the same house together because of the queen bee concept. One person has to be the queen bee. One person has to rise above in order to be the one that makes that household function is the individual, should I say, that is taking charge or taking the lead to direct everyone else and to figure out how that family functions and how well that they do that. And generally the concept is you can't do that with two queen bees. There can only be one. And as young women grow in age, we become aware of who we are and of ourselves. By doing so, it causes us to question certain things, question authority, because if I'm being raised in a way that helps me to communicate my voice, well, guess what? I practice that in the household in which I am taught to do that. I remember one time I lived with my dad. So I lived with both my parents until they got a divorce when I was 10. Then I went and lived with my mom from the time my parents were divorced until I was in my second semester of college. It was really during Christmas break of college. My mom moved back home to be with her siblings, rightfully so. She comes from a big family, and she only came to Michigan to, because she was married to my daddy. He got a job here. Well, they were divorced. Now both of her kids are out of high school and really kind of somewhat on their own because I'm away at school. My brother was away as well. He might have been back. I can't quite remember. He might have and came back home to go to school. I don't really recall. But my point is to say, and he wasn't. That's it. He wasn't. He was still away at school. So we're 6 years apart in age, guys. Sometimes it's hard to remember. But my point is to say that I went to live with my dad when my mom went to live back home with her family. I was like, I know nothing about that state. I'm not living there. I don't know anyone there. I don't have friends there. I'm staying right here, Missy, and I'm going to stay with Daddy. Thank God I had a father that was in my life and that we were very close, and that I was literally a matter of picking up the phone. Hey, Dad, I called him Daddy. Hey, Daddy, Mama is moving back home and I'm going to come live with you. I don't even think I asked. I think I just told him I'm coming to live with you, but it was no big deal. He was like, okay. So I live with my father, and totally different. When I say mind-boggling, totally different than living with my mom. Under my mother's roof, chores were at this time, on this particular day. You had this, and that done during the week. And it was just things that you just did not do in my mama's house. And she let you know that you did not do that. However, when I got to my daddy's house, it was like freedom that I had never experienced before. I was like, what? You're not going to even ask me what time I'm coming in? But because I was so trained, my butt came in at the same time anyhow, right? Why? Simply because I just had to. It was ingrained in me. So I came home not really thinking like I had to be home at a particular time because my father didn't require that of me. But guess what? Because my mother did and it was ingrained in me, I came home at a specific time like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what time I'm supposed to be home. And I never really took advantage of that. And when I say never really, I think I might have stayed out late twice, y'all. But it was just ingrained in me. But what's my point? Father loving his daughter, a mother raising her daughter. So when we experience these mommy issues, so to speak, we experience these issues because this person of the same sex is or has experienced things in which they are really trying to teach me how to overcome or not even experience. Or maybe it's just the fact that they want me to be a healthy, functioning adult. Or maybe they want us to get to a place where we do as we are told because that's how they were instructed. And maybe it's a matter of, hey, I overcame this issue. You stop whining about it. If I can do it, so can you. But how many of us know how our parents were raised is not the same way we should, I'm not saying all times, because there are some cases you want to raise your children as how you were raised, but not in every situation, right? And that's where these mommy issues develop. But it's really ran from the concept of, one, I'm going to raise a daughter who is going to be in the future a independent woman, self-sufficient woman, maybe a wife, maybe a mother, and I have to teach her these things so that she can healthily function in this capacity. But as we say in my household, it's all about presentation. It is how we go about communicating this and displaying, meaning modeling this, that determines how well it is being received. And when those things don't gel together well and they are not in sync, then that's how we develop these mommy issues. So what does that mean? Let's kind of look at some points. So there are reasons why these, I don't want to say they're complexes because they're not, but these types of negative occurrences in the relationship take place. One is being queen bee, right? You can't have two queen bees. We just discussed that, right? So we've already talked about the first reason. I'm raising a daughter, and even though I'm raising her to be independent and strong and able to communicate and share her feelings, I only want her to do that to a certain point here, okay? Going back to the example with my dad. I started on it, but then got sidetracked, and I'm going to come back to the point. So my mom raised me to be a particular way, communicating, being self-sufficient, not being afraid to share my voice. I go live with my father, and I mentioned this example before, but I go live with my dad. One day, it was a holiday, he had some friends over, and one of his friends, this lady that he worked with, he was really cool with. She was a nice lady. But I forgot what it was my father had asked me. I don't even remember. But whatever my response was, she didn't like how I talked to him. Now, I am not a disrespectful person. I may think a number of things, but to not be disrespectful to someone, I'll keep my mouth shut. And this has gotten a lot better in my older years. In my younger years, I just would have thought something I might have communicated, but I'm not going to communicate disrespectfully to an elder. That's just something my parents just told me never to do or to become. So in this instance, I know I wasn't disrespectful to my father, but I know I was clear. And my father was the type of person, as a counselor and as a Black counselor, he was always making certain that, you were okay with being you. You were fine with being you. And I remember, and I'm going to get to my point, I'm not going to forget. But I remember one day he asked me, do you wish you were light complexion like your mom? Because my mother is fair skinned and my father was dark complected and I'm in between. And he was like, do you wish, just out of nowhere, just driving home from school, do you wish you were fair complected like your mother? And I'm like, no, I don't want to be her complexion. And no, I'm sorry. He said, would you want to be dark complected like me? And I said, no, I don't want to be dark complected. And he kind of just, I don't know. At the time, I didn't pay attention to it, but looking back on it, I was like, wait a minute. I didn't even know that was a game he was playing. But then he said, oh, you want to be fair complected like your mom. And I'm certain I surprised him because I was like, no, I don't want to be her complexion either. And he looked and he was like, well, what do you want to be? And I was like, me. I like how I look. I like my complexion. I don't want to be either of your complexions because I like me. It was, why it was okay with him? It was okay with him because what I was communicating as a probably 11-year-old was the fact that I'm good in my own skin. I'm okay in my own skin. I don't want to be someone else. I don't want to look like someone else because of the way that they may be treated better. That was not what I saw for myself. And I was confident in who I am. Why was that the case? Because my parents instilled those things in me. So even when he was trying to play these Jedi mind tricks on me, it didn't work. Now, he wasn't trying to, trip me up or anything, but he was really just trying to say, where's my daughter at? Is my daughter okay with who she is? What do I need to do to help her with that? So now going back to the house event that we had on the holiday and one of his friends was talking, she stopped and said, "You're going to let her talk to you like that?" And I looked at her like, what is she talking about? And he looked at her and was like, and actually said it, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "The way that she just talked to you, that was disrespectful. You're going to let her talk to you like that?" And he said, "Well, for one, she wasn't disrespectful. Two, we have an open relationship where she can communicate to me and we talk and have a dialogue with one another, and it's okay with me. And three, it's not even any of your business what I do here in this household with my child." Now, if you all don't know, you can't go telling folks, especially Black folks, you can't go telling them how to raise their kids. You cannot do that. That is a surefire way to get yourself cut off. You just can't do it. Even if you are very close with the person, you have to walk very gingerly because that is that person's child. And you don't necessarily know how they want that person to develop. Therefore, you can't really instigate. In essence, you have to wait until you're asked, not you just jumping in, saying and doing whatever it is you want to do. But the point I'm trying to make with that is in that instance, even though my father was supporting me, he also saw that I was okay with communicating for myself, advocating for myself. Again, this was something that was instilled in me, but more so because of the time spent living under my mother's roof, right? But here's the point I'm trying to make here. Again, going back to being able to be at a place where you are raising your daughter. As a mother, that's what we do. We raise our daughters because we want to make certain that they're going to be okay in this world. And we know if we've done our part in certain ways and we can see that with us, meaning our daughter and us interacting together, and if they can do certain things in front of us, then we know they're okay. My father was able to reiterate that to this woman because he said, if she is able to communicate with me in this manner, then I know she's going to be okay in this world because she's not going to back down on them because she has no relationship with them. And he was absolutely right. And I got that from him, but it was more so instilled in my mom. So when we are looking at reasons why we're having issues with our same-sex child here, meaning your daughters, you moms and daughters, we have to look at the fact we're raising our daughters, but we also need to love them. It shouldn't just be love our sons, raise our daughters. It should be loving our daughters because they need that love too. And not everyone in this world had the advantage that I had, which was having a father that even though my parents were divorced, he was still around. I tell people all the time, divorce as a kid, it only meant to me that your father doesn't stay in the same house with you. Nothing else changed for me. Everything else was still structured, and kids need structure. They need consistency. So when it comes to raising our daughters so that we don't have mommy issues, we have to have that healthy balance. We want to make certain that we are raising them to be healthy, functioning, self-sufficient individuals, but we actually have to show them love. One, it's healthy for them mentally and emotionally, but in the same sense, you are modeling to them what they will need to then later do with their own children, their own daughters. But if they don't get love from their mom, then how would they know what that should look like with their own daughter? Sure, they'll know how to teach her how to make a great bed and do some dishes and go out there and be the boss in her field. But what about love? How will she know what to do when it comes to showing love? So when we're looking at mommy issues, one of the factors is the fact that we have to not just raise our daughters, but we have to love our daughters as well. Okay. Now, I did mention about the queen bee concept, and that really wasn't a reason why we have these factors. You do have to help your children to understand, yes, there's only going to be one queen bee in this house, but that's more so a hierarchy issue, meaning you are a child under this roof, I'm the one that's in charge. Or you're living here while you're getting your stuff, your finances, or yourself together, but I'm the one that's still paying these bills, running this household. Just because you're grown does not mean that you can do certain things. I know I never had this experience, but I've had friends, I want to say a few of my friends, whereas they were engaged, came home with their fiance, and their parents are like, where do you think you're going? You're not about to go upstairs in that room with your fiance. And they're like, what? I'm good and grown. We live together in another state. We're here visiting you. Where did you think he was going to sleep? We're going to sleep together. And they were like, look here, what you do in your household is your business. But under this roof, this is what we do and do not do. And they weren't able to stay together. You all have seen this on movies and shows all the time. But, I saw it experienced in real life. What happened, though? You have an adult female child and her mother under the same roof. Guess who wins? Queen bee, the one who runs that household. Now, I'm not saying that it's a reason why parents can't get along, because those are parents and daughters can't get along. That's situational. But when you have a teenage female living under your household, teenagers are emotional. They're going through hormonal changes. Females go through so many ups and downs and not wanting to be bothered and being sassy at the mouth and different things like that. So that queen bee, I don't want to say complex, but scenario is more so structurally within the relationship, allowing that person to see, just because you have come into yourself, don't go smelling yourself. And what that means here in America is don't be just being all into yourself. You're getting a little too high. I'm about to use different terminologies that if you don't know one, you won't know the other. But in essence, smelling yourself means thinking you're all of that, thinking you're better than others, thinking that you can do certain things that you should not be doing. That's what I'm trying to say here. So in essence, the queen bee instance is not a reason why there are mommy issues. That's just raising your daughter. That's a part of that package, I would say. So remember, I just got through explaining that some of the reasons why we have mommy issues were because you're raising your daughters, not loving them. That queen bee scenario is not a reason why there are mommy issues. It more so goes into you're just raising your daughter. You're trying to teach them about respectability, and hierarchy as far as structure within a household, and that just because you are a young adult does not mean that you are a self-sufficient adult in this household. And that's just about respect. Okay. So the next point is about personality differences, meaning if we are different people, when there are mommy issues, you generally feel that you have no connection with your mother, meaning that person does not understand you. Remember, when we think about attachment, we're thinking about validation, where everyone wants to be heard and they want to be understood, but they also want to feel loved, cared for, and supported. So when we have differences, I may not always feel supported because you don't see the way that I see, or you don't see from the lens from which I see. And as a result, it causes me to believe you may not be on my team. So if you have a parent that is not really great at expressing themselves in a healthy way emotionally, when their child goes to share with them things that may be going on or things that they want to do, that parent will not appear to be on their side. And it causes that person to believe, well, me and my mom, we just can't get along. And it's not that you can't, it's just the differences. And unfortunately, we in this world, we view differences as a bad thing. And to me, it's really a matter of getting people to understand differences strengthen you, because I can become stronger if I have different abilities available to me that are not necessarily part of me. So if you are strong in A through L, but yet I'm strong in M through Z, then guess what? Then we have all 26 letters of the English alphabet covered. But me alone, I would only have 13 of those. And you alone would only have 13. But together, even though we're different, we have more. And when people don't see that differences can be a good thing, we cause ourselves to have problems where we don't necessarily need to have problems. And it all stems from not believing or maybe not experiencing being understood. Everybody wants to be understood. No one likes to be the odd person out. No one likes to be the outlier in a situation where you're just hanging out all by yourself because you're the only sole person that sees, believes, and thinks and behaves a particular way, and everyone else is different. There are times where we definitely want to be different, but if we could be different as well as being understood, then that's even better. And when we have issues with our daughters as moms, it's helpful to allow that child to see that even though you all are different, you still support them. And in supporting them, you are doing your best to understand them. And I learned this phrase from an ex-boyfriend of mine. You all heard me talk about it before. I'm not going to say names, but you know I gave them little names for you all. Fave ex, my favorite ex. So my favorite ex told me, we seek to understand, right? That's what makes things better than seeking to be understood. So if I'm seeking to really understand you, then I'm asking you questions to learn about you. Even though you're different from me, I'm asking the questions to hear you, to understand you better, so that I can use that knowledge and content, not against you, but to help us function better as a team, together as one, not on opposite sides, but on the same side. But if I'm solely seeking to be understood, I only care about me and my point. I only care about how I see, how I think, how I feel, what I'm experiencing, and I don't care about you. So I'm not going to ask you questions. I'm looking at you crazy because you're not asking me questions. So and since you're not, I'm now telling you about me. And no one wants to hear from someone who's only communicating about themselves. So we want to make certain that if we're looking at mommy issues, we need to do a self-check. Wait a minute. Am I asking the right questions? Am I asking any question? Because if not, then I'm allowing these differences between us to not help me to understand you. Next point. Very, I'm going to use the word that I should not be using, but I can't think of another word to say. Very similar to the last point. This one is personality similarities, okay? So we just talked about how differences cause us not to feel as if we are trying to understand the other person. In a personality similarity, think of it, you have your mini-me, right? We see that on the gram all the time. Me and my little mini-me. So cute, so adorable when they're 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 and under, right? When we hit to that rough patch, 6 through 11, where that personality is being formed, where we are discovering who we are as individuals. We are learning what morals, rights we have, right? What voice we have. And when we learn that we are similar to our parent, or we are similar, very similar to our child, well, now we're too much alike. And if we are so much alike, sometimes looking at someone who is exactly like you causes you to see yourself. And so imagine if you're a mom and your daughter is exactly like you, then you probably can see some of the mistakes that they are headed towards because of that similarity. Sometimes you can see, great things that they're going to experience, but knowledge that they do not have yet. So you may want to just implode on them with too much information to prepare them for a place that they have yet to come. Even though they're headed there, it can just be overwhelming to them. That's why, they're like, back off, mom, because we're mommying them. We are not helicoptering them where we're hovering over them, but We are doing things because in a good way, we see ourselves in them and we want them to experience it even better than we did or catch something that we didn't catch. But in the same sense, we want to prevent them from experiencing some of the things that we experienced, some of the hurdles that we had to overcome, some of the hurt that we even experienced ourselves. We're trying to prevent that from them because we see that we are very alike and we want to shelter them from that. But the way in which we go about doing it can be problematic, causing those differences. And if we allow that to just fester and build over time, then that causes distance. When we are distant, then that means we have no emotional connection. And therefore, we see ourselves as adults and we don't have this wonderful relationship, which we always desire because remember, that's our mini me, but we don't have the relationship that we have. So I'll give you an example. My mom and I, man, growing up, she was rough. We called her the warden. You all know what a warden is, right? That's the person that runs the prison, right? The people that live there were prisoners. And we called my mom the warden. And that was rough. And I remember one time my best friend had this event. She was honoring women and moms. And I asked my mom, now on the low, yes, I'm telling you all a secret. On the low, I didn't initially say anything because I was thinking, my mom is mean. What am I going to say that's nice? But I brought her, right? And she gets her award and I'm saying my few words. And later on, my mom says, that was embarrassing. And I was thinking like, what do you mean it's embarrassing? I don't understand. And she says, well, all you did was you sat up there and you identified examples of me being the warden. And I was thinking like, well, what else do I have? You weren't exactly the most loving person in the world here. Well, what happened? I didn't get to see the softer side of mom. That was a Sears commercial. Experience the softer side of Sears. I didn't get to experience that. There was a period where it happened, and then there was a long period where it did not happen. And then there was a period where it came back, and I was like, man, there's that fun mom again. And then it disappeared for a while. Fortunately, thank the Lord Jesus above and the Heavenly Father that we've gotten to this place where we can be close and cool again. But guess what? It took some time, folks. Why? Because she was raising me, not particularly giving me the love that as a kid that I needed. And then because I am so much like her, she was trying to do things to steer me in a direction that she went herself that didn't work out for her. But we have to be careful. Our kids may be many versions of ourselves, but they are not us. They are different individuals. And while we love them, we have to allow them to live their own life. And as they get older, we pull back some because they have to live their own life. And we have to pray. Everything that I instilled in you, I'm praying that it comes out at the right time. But should it not, and you need me, then I'm here for you. That's how we still be there, love them, still raise them, but we do it at their bequest, not at our forcefulness towards it. So when we have a mini-me that has personality similarities, we see ourselves in good ways, but we also see ourselves in not so good ways where we are trying to shelter them from harm or danger, from naivety, from lack of knowledge, from just really needing to shape and grow in this area that we know is not good and needs growth and is going to allow life to give us the opportunity for growth, not mommy telling us, because we have to see it for ourselves. Some people are great. They don't need to see it and experience it in order to know, this is good for me. Some people need that little knock to let them know, okay, dang, that's not the right route to go. Just depends. But we have to be careful because when we have these personality similarities, we want to make certain that the presentation of what we are communicating to our daughters comes from a place of love and concern, not forcefulness, okay? Because they are not us. They are like us, but they are different. All right, let's move on to the next point. Now, I mentioned before, as far as raising our daughters and not giving them fully the love that they needed. So this point, I don't want you to hear that word raise and think I'm talking about the same thing, because I'm not. What I'm saying here is the next point being, my mom raised me, and so I'm going to do exactly what my mom did. So think of it like this way. Let's just say let me just use myself. That way I won't get names mixed up. Okay, so there's me, then there's my mom, and then there's my grandmother. Okay, now my grandmother, which is my mom's mom, she passed when she was 4, so it won't be an accurate example, but you'll get the point. So if my mom raised me like her mom raised her, that can be good, but at the same time, we want to be careful. Why? There are certain things that we do that are great that we want to instill, teaching my kids the Bible, teaching them about the Lord, teaching them, well, this is what, I would do if I had kids, and this is what was done with me. Going to church, just having this relationship with God. My parents taught me that, and their parents taught them that. So this continues because we believe this is important. And there was an actual study done. I always forget the names of these individuals, but they did a study on about, I think it was 100 years, 100 years in these 2 families that came from these 2 towns. But I'm digressing. It's a very good study. But my point is to say that if my mom, because of her mom, taught me about Jesus, then there's certain traits that you want to keep down the line, right? But there are some things that our parents did that was good for that time period, but maybe does not work now. So for instance, in my generation, if I were a parent, in case you didn't know, no, I am not a parent, but if I were a parent, I would probably not be heard if I was instilling in my child, you have to go to this 9 to 5 and you want to stay there for as long as you can and get the company watching 25 years. We don't do that anymore. That's what we did in my parents' day. But in this day now, in this day and age, people stay at a job for, you've been there a long time. You've been there about 4 years. People are getting what they need to get, moving on. And even nowadays, I want to say millennials are raising their kids to be entrepreneurs in different ways than what entrepreneurial spirit meant in my day growing up. I'm a Gen Xer. So millennials are like, you can be a YouTuber, you can be a skateboarder, you can be a gamer. Whereas in my day, an entrepreneur was, you're going to open up your own clothing line or your own corporation, whatever that is, a lot different. Both are entrepreneurs, but different types in different ways. One is way more freelance than the other version. So we have to consider a few things based on how our mom raised us. We can't do everything the exact same way in which we were taught. The time is different, meaning as the generations move on, there are different things that generation that is new will live and experience, that we have to allow them to do that with knowledge and help from us, but it doesn't have to be the exact same way as us. And we're making certain that it's the exact same way and we're forceful with that. We're pressuring someone to do and be someone that they're not. And that will cause strain and distance in a relationship to the place where you become emotionally cut off, where you distance yourself purposefully because it is only hurtful to you when you do come with this person. So I'm going to give you an example of how we have to ask questions. We have to question some things. So you may have heard this before. So it's a story of this woman, it's the holidays, and she's making holiday dinner with her mom, and they're making the roast. And she goes to cut a part of the roast off and then places it in the pan. And then she asks her mom, you know what? I never asked you, why do we always cut this part of the roast off? I don't understand that. Can you explain it to me? And she said, I don't know. I learned it from my mother. And she said, you know what? Let's just call her. So that mother called her mom, which would be the other lady's grandmother, right? So you have mom 1, mom 2, and mom 3. Mom 1 asked the question to mom 2. Mom 2 didn't know the answer, so she called mom 3, which is the grandmother. So she calls her and she says, oh, well, baby, I can tell you the reason why, because in my household growing up, your mom, your grandmother, meaning mom 4 now, which is mom 1's great grandmother, and mom 3 says, oh, well, we did that in my household because the pan was too small. So through these generations, they're cutting a piece of this roast off and getting rid of it simply because for 2 generations before, the mother didn't have a big enough pan to put the entire roast in. But now here we are in this new day and age and time where we have all types of cookware sizes and types of cookware available. They're cutting this part off, not using it. And the question is asked, and it's because I didn't have space and room for it. But now today we do. So again, our moms raising us is great. They're instilling wonderful things that we want to keep, and then possibly some things that we don't want to keep. So there's always good and bad, but we have to always ask ourselves, does this fit for me and my family? Just because my mother did this with me does not necessarily mean that I need to do this. You may be of a household where things work if you are a 2-income household. There are some households where they're like, you know what? We're fine to sacrifice during these years because we want a certain type of education for our children. So therefore, we're going to sacrifice and work these 2 jobs so that these kids can be in this particular school. Whereas another family may say, well, we're going to sacrifice and we're okay with being a 1-income household because I'm going to homeschool my children. And therefore, if I don't work, I know I can be here and do that in the way that needs to be done. And I can oversee their education. There's different ways to go about doing it, but you have to ask yourself, what works for you and your household? Is this healthy to you in order to help you to raise a healthy, functioning, self-sufficient individual, or however you are deeming your parental role with your mini-me is, and what that should look like and what you want it to look like. When this is different because it's an opposite sex parent, but the point is still the same. When my great niece was born, I asked my nephew, what type of daughter do you want to raise? This is a question you need to know. Just because I'm not a parent doesn't mean I don't have any sense. And Lord knows I can use every single class that I've used in every graduate and undergraduate program I've been in because there's been a number of them. Okay. So because of that, why not ask questions that's going to help this individual not just be a parent, but be the type of parent that is needed in order for this individual to grow up to be the person that you are trying to shape them to be. I remember one of my close friends, she knew in advance before she had her kids, what type of parent she wanted to be. She knew what she would have to do. She knew what she would not be able to do. She knew what type of education she wanted them to have. She knew what type of person she wanted them to become. And I have watched her for the past 20 plus years doing exactly that. And one day we talked about it. And when we did, I said, you're so good at this. Now, my friend, she has a master's degree and she's an engineer. And she said, I knew when I had kids that I was not going to work, that I wanted to homeschool them because I wanted the right education with them. I wanted to oversee that education, but I also wanted them to be well-rounded individuals. So I needed a certain type of homeschool that would allow them to be around kids so that they could still socialize, but I could still oversee things. And then she knew what type of person that she wanted them to become. She wanted them to be independent thinkers. And she knew that the traditional school system did not incorporate that. But the traditional school system, when it was first started, like if you think back to Little House on the Prairie, first school system, that was independent thinking compared to what we have now. And she said it's not a lot of schools that do that. So I had to find a homeschool that had that type of platform. And she knew this is what we were going to need as a result. And I'm saying that for the purpose, and she thought this out. Now I get it, not everyone will go to that extent, but she thought in advance what type of children she wanted to raise. And for her, this healthy, functioning, self-sufficient, independent individual looked a particular way, and she saw it through. not doing what was particularly done with her, instilling some things that her mother gave her, but doing some things differently. So we have to look at the good and the bad. We can't just do everything the same, because there are some things that we may not have liked, but we have to ask ourselves, why do I not like this? What is the reason for it? Because when we ask ourselves the reason, then if it's because I had a problem with it because of me and my mom and not necessarily the principal, then it may be something you would consider based on you knowing your child and knowing what it is that they need and what it is that they don't need. Okay. Now, my next and final point for this particular subject matter is, and you know I was coming here, guys. That's right. It's attachment. I love saying that because I love it. Okay. Oh, I just love it. So what does this have to do with anything? All right. When we look at things from an attachment style basis, and we're talking about mommy issues, we have to look at the fact that more than likely you have an attachment style. If it is not secure, you have an attachment style. Let me just verify this point here. If you have a secure attachment style, you generally don't have mommy issues, because your mommy, if you grew up in a household with your mom as the primary caregiver, your mommy was the person that helped you to form a secure attachment style. So you know how to communicate healthily, to be able to have conflict and address conflict in a healthy yet respectful fashion. You can be as flustered, upset as you want, but still be able to talk things through and not having any type of jeopardy to the relationship. Okay. For the other people in the world that are not securely attached, that experience anxious, avoidant, or the combination thereof, which is also known as anxious avoidant, and that it is disorganized and fearful, it means that when we look at our attachment style, it was still gifted to us by our parent. But when we have mommy issues and we have difficulties with our parent, it's because they did not present themselves to be what it is that we needed. And in order to survive in that household, we learned how to adapt to that particular attachment style to survive that time frame. So what does that mean? If you had an avoidant mother, that means you had someone that was not very emotionally present, not emotionally available. You weren't going to go talking about your feelings to this person because they did not do that. That was what my mom was. You can talk all you want to, but you weren't going to get anything. She's going to listen for a minute, and then it was going to stop. And don't get me wrong, my mother loves her kids. She will do anything for her kids, but she didn't have that. And I've explained that to you. She grew up in a household where her mother was deceased by the time she was 4. She did not have that as an example model to her. And my mother's father refused to remarry. He has 6 kids. And he's like, I'm not marrying someone so they can come in here, tell me how to raise my kids and treat my kids any old kind of way. I'll stay single. I'm okay with that. So she never even had an example, even like her dad with a girlfriend or anything like that. So that soft, nurturing, emotional side she didn't have. As loving as her father was, he did not have that element. So for me growing up, in order to survive, you weren't going to talk about your feelings, at least not to my mom. I could do that with my dad, right? Different skill set, different person, different parent, different roles. But mom and daughter, emotions is not what we did in our household growing up. And you learn quickly. Get on over that, because you're on your own if you stay here. And it wasn't a fun place to be. Okay. Now, if you grew up in a Black household, you probably heard a lot about, be quiet. Don't you see I'm on the phone? Or you heard, what's another good one? Let me think for a second. Let me think. Oh, this was one that was my favorite that we would hear. I want to give you something to cry about, right? Meaning, I want to hear you crying. I want to hear your little lip, right? What is my point? My point is the fact that if you had a parent or have a parent that you are experiencing mommy issues with, more than likely you have a different attachment style. And if you have a mom that is avoidant, more than likely you either became avoidant or you were anxious and you tried to figure out how to make this work, and you are still in a place where you're probably trying to please mom and mom is never satisfied. or you become avoidant where you just learn to be non-emotional too. So where now she may need you to be emotional, you're looking at this person like, I hope you figure that out on your own. I don't know what to tell you on that. Right? Not because you're trying to be mean or get back to this person. They didn't instill it in you. And now as an adult, it is very challenging. It is an effort to learn that because you have to continually practice that. And I can testify because I've told you all before. I grew up in a household where my mother was avoidant. I learned to be avoidant. But guess what? As an adult, that didn't work so well. And I had to learn how to be better. And it is an effort that you have to practice that muscle over and over again until it becomes ingrained in you. When you do and you get there, it's fabulous. Another thing, age will help you to do that. You'll just get to a place where certain things just aren't important to you to contend with, and you'll just change because of it. But why wait till you're 40 plus to do that when you can learn this lesson when you're much younger and just learn how to figure out how to make that work? So your attachment style can be a reason why you have mommy issues. And then if you have this history between you two, it's different to move from that. You know, I remember even with my grandmother, and this is generational, meaning not avoidant attachment relationships or personality traits in my family, but meaning different generations. So if we think of the African American family, unfortunately in America, we just never really had the luxury in past, 100 years ago to have family members who had the luxury of sitting in their feelings. That was not an option. We were trying to stay alive in this country, right? That we were brought to. In order to stay alive, you weren't going to complain about what master was doing. You weren't going to complain about what you weren't getting or how you were feeling. No, you just got up every day and just dealt with the same thing over and over again, and you learned to stuff your feelings. And so then if you think about the next generation after that, is staying alive. And then if you think about the generation after that, where now, we now have a leg up. Okay, we're able to do certain things that prior generations couldn't do. Well, now you're contending with the differences in cultures and ethnicities and races. And then you're dealing with the pressures of that, now bringing that. And it just goes on from generation to generation. So when I think about my grandmother, I remember my grandmother was 90. And I would tell her I love her on a regular basis. And one day she said, I'm just not accustomed to doing that. And I said, well, Grandma, I've been telling you I love you for I don't know how long, since I was a kid. And she was like, I know, but as an adult, I'm just not used to doing that. So she rarely told me she loved me, but I knew my grandmother loved me. I saw it all the time in every little thing that she did. But it wasn't something that she was accustomed to saying. Why? Because in her day and age, that was an afforded luxury that was not given to her, because guess what? Her parents came from the cotton fields. And as a result, you weren't talking about your feelings. So what is my point in that? Sometimes, even though it is based on our attachment, it can be generational based on how that generation experienced their parental relationship. So if you didn't have a lot of love expressed, then more than likely it's going to be challenging for you to do that with your mini-me. If you did have a lot of love expressed, but maybe it wasn't consistent, then you may present that to your child. And they have to figure out, how do I flow in this relationship? When we have what we identify as anxious attachment, where it is anxious preoccupied, that means I am preoccupied with what am I doing wrong that I can't get this right consistently, where you can love me consistently. So that person generally tends up becoming a people pleaser because they want to make people happy. They want to get it right. They want you to be there. They don't want to be rejected or abandoned. And therefore it comes out in the things that they are doing, because they're trying to secure your presence in their life. And if they've never really seen that from their parent as a child, it's hard to do that in other relationships. But even as an adult, now I'm fully grown, but I still desire to have my parents' approval. And that can be evidenced with what we identify as anxious preoccupied. And again, if you're avoidant, it's what I told you before, giving the example of my parent. You have to learn, of course, to survive, but you're learning, the way that I survive is to shut down on my emotions. Great, helped you survive that household, helped you to flow there. But now as an adult in your own family, you cannot be emotionless. We need to be present. That's one of the great things I really, truly love about these new generations. I mean, when I think of my Gen Zers, my Gen Alphas, they are going to express their feelings. Now, I'm not saying you're going to always like what you're hearing or like what you're seeing as a result of it, but you're going to know exactly what's going on. They're going to tell you this. They will communicate this. Why? Because millennials learn, oh no, we're going to talk about feelings. That's what we are going to do. Not saying everyone does, but they learn from their parents. Counseling is okay. It's okay to express ourselves. It's okay to share our thoughts and feelings. And now they have learned that. So these younger generations are able to do that. But we have to get to this place, whereas we know if I am not doing that, then more than likely I become an adult having mommy issues because now this parent is softer. They're probably experiencing a lot more leniency with my children, thus their grandchildren that I never saw. And I don't want to have animosity towards them because of that, right? I mean, I look at my own mother just the other day with my great niece, her great grandchild. This little girl can do what she wants. My mother's like, she's the boss, whatever she wants. I remember I said to my mother, I forgot what it was. It was something. And I can't remember what it was. And my mother was like, I was not hard on you all. I looked at her like, who is she talking to? Because yes, she was hard on me. And I explained it to her. And she said, I was not. I was like, what world is she living in? One of the girls I follow on social media, she says she has this little like mini Facebook blog, so to speak, where she says, what kind of person is this? Because I don't know this woman. This is not the woman that I grew up with. People change when they get older. They become softer. But if they weren't emotionally present and available, if they were avoiding attachment, then guess what? They don't have a child who shows evidence that they care. They do care, but they don't know how to show that because it was not modeled before them. And if you have disorganized, fearful attachment, you're a combination of both. You don't know what to trust. So therefore, you have a relationship with a parent that you don't really know how to open up to and share to because you don't have a model of that. But in the same sense, you could have been hurt by that individual and you no longer trust them. So in my opinion, unless you get Jesus to help you to heal, that one is especially challenging because you have to learn how to get to a place where you can forgive that person, let go, and then on top of that, get to a place where you are okay with your parent if they do or do not change. All right. So that's it, guys. Those are all the reasons why we have these mommy issues. And to kind of wrap this up, what do we need to do in order to correct that? I want to say you just have to get to a place to decide what type of relationship do you want with your mom and how can you go about making that happen. I told you all, me and my mom, we went through our little ups and downs and I had to get to a place. This is not what I want. So I'm going to now be the person that I'm okay with being, and you're going to have to learn to like that. And we had a conversation about it, and she said it was a little bit difficult, and I would frustrate her. I'm not trying to make it seem like, it's just all her. She said I would frustrate her, and she had to get to a place where she wasn't going to contend with me about every single thing. And once we learn what to do, how to do it, and how to communicate, then things started to improve. It's still a work in progress, but I still love her. She's the best mom. She's great. I know she loves me. She's always there. And it's just a matter of us learning how to get through these things, but we have to learn how to communicate and communicate in a healthy fashion, okay? Moms do the best that they can. No one is perfect. But when we do the best that we can as a mom, we are allowing ourselves to be honest and be vulnerable, but we have to communicate that we don't know everything. And it's actually okay to learn from your adult child or even your young child. All right. Okay. So let's leave out today with our like it, love it, leave it tips. So my like it tip for today would be when it comes to mommy issues, I really like the fact that if we just be honest with ourselves about what's happening, then we can get to a place where we're ready to correct the things that we see that are in error or that we dislike and that we want to improve. So I like the fact that If we address it head on instead of running roundabout or avoiding it, then we get to this place where we can actually begin working on the thing that we want to develop. The lovey tip, I love the fact that from experience, you really can have a great relationship with the person that you thought you could never get past your issues with. I remember times, you all, where I'm telling you, I didn't think it would be possible to have a good relationship with my mom because it felt like you just don't get me. But when she started trying to understand me as a person and I feel respected me as a person, I believe things change. And we still, like I said, we still have our challenges, but I love the fact that if you work on it, then it becomes you working the thing, not the thing working you. And you can have a great relationship with your mom because of it. And my leave it tip, I think my leave it tip is always the same no matter what episode it is. Leave out anything that's not working for you. If arguing is not working for you, then stop arguing. Let certain things go. If talking to this person is not working for you and you've talked and you've tried to explain to them, you've done your part. I'm not saying you have to stop, but let it go and start praying about it, because that's what's going to cause the change if they have not heard you or tried to hear you. So leave out anything that's just not working for you and find a different way to make it work. There's always a solution. It's just a matter of how diligent we are and persistent we are in order to find that answer. Okay? Well, that's it for today's episode, guys. You know how we close out the show. Don't forget to rate and review us wherever you have downloaded the show. You can find us on any social media platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and even Snapchat, guys. That's right. As we close out the podcast this season, you're going to see me more and more on these different platforms because I want to get face-to-face with you. You've heard my voice for a while. Now it's time for you to see my face and for me to see yours. So I'm going to start seeing you at some events. Again, we have our October event, the Black and Bling, BYOB, Bring Your Own Bestie. And then we'll be having the upcoming date night couples event. And you're going to love that theme. I'll release it sometime later this year. I want to keep you on your toes, all right? So don't forget, rate and review us wherever you have downloaded the show. And of course, you can follow us on all social media platforms at Eros Meets Agape. Stay tuned. Keep following us as you can get more event information and check the erosmeetsagape.com website. And of course, you know how I like to leave the show. I'm your host, Dr. Sadia, helping you to give and receive the love you both want and need. Till next time, be blessed, everyone. Bye-bye.